Good morning, everyone. My name's Leanne Smith. I work at Jim's First Point School, and I oversee the Arabic, English, and MFL departments at the school. My session today is all about how we promote student happiness through learning in real-life contexts, and we're going to think about what that means and how we can actually pull that apart and hopefully take some ideas away that you might want to use in your subjects and in your schools. So the first thing I'd like us to do is just to have a think about what makes a great PD session. We all go to lots of PD sessions in our schools and externally as well, and I just want you to think about the factors that make a session great. So what I'd like you to do, please, is to go to this website, menti.com, on your phone if you can, if you're logged onto the Wi-Fi, and just to type in the code there, 480961. Everybody in the room can contribute what they think according to a series of statements of what makes a great PD session, which you think are most important, which you think are least important, and then we're going to see what our overall opinion is. So if you can just log on to there. If you haven't got a device with you, just work with the person next to you, and let's have a look what we come up with. It's okay. 1 second, sorry. 480961. And then hopefully, as you contribute your ideas, it should come up automatically on the screen. The code's at the top, again, if you didn't catch it from the PowerPoint. Oh, we've got some jokers in the room thinking sweets are the most important thing. I like that. Just another minute for those of you who are still on there. Okay, so I think everybody more or less has contributed. Just another 10 seconds or so if you're still on there. Essentially, this is a fantastic tool that you can use in lessons to assess students very, very quickly. And what we can see here is that catering to our needs and relevance are the two things that come up the highest. And that was what I was hoping, to be honest with you. Obviously, when we attend a PD session, whether it's in school or externally, we want the session to be relevant for us in our day-to-day practice. And I think the message from that is that when we're teaching our students, we want the learning to be as relevant to them as possible. I often think of us as teachers as being kind of just older replicas of students, really. We appreciate praise, we like things to be relevant, we like things to be interesting, we like them to be engaging. And I think that actually that's exactly what we should be thinking when we're teaching our students. So today's session, as I say, all about learning in real-life contexts. And our aims of the session today are, first of all, to think about what different factors make students happy in our lessons, and then to focus in on one idea of the learning through real-life contexts, to understand what this really is and what it looks like, and why, at First Point, we think that learning in real-life contexts is really important. And then what I want us to do is to spend some time discussing and developing some ideas in your specific subjects that you can take home to school and can try, hopefully, and use in the next couple of weeks or so. So, student happiness in lessons. On your desks, every couple of desks, there are some post-it notes. What I'd like you to do is just to turn, if we can centre on the person who has the post-it notes, and the people around them can just join together, have a discussion, write down some key words on some post-it notes of what you think makes students happy in lessons. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that, please. So you guys, if you turn around and work with this group. So it should be groups of 4, groups of 6-ish. Okay, ladies, if you can turn around to this one, and then you guys are all okay together, yeah? So what are the factors that make students happy in lessons? Just keywords, short phrases, just get those ideas out there through your discussion. Ladies, do you mind turning around and working with these guys as well? That would be great, thank you. I have got some more post-its up the front, I'll just get some more for you. you try and come up with maybe 10 key words, key phrases that you think, separate post-it notes for each one would be good. Have we got enough over here? Just keep them in front of you for now. And just wrap up your discussions there. We'll have more opportunity in a second. What I'd like you to do now is just to split those factors into two columns. Factors that we as teachers control and factors that are outside of our control. So if you can split them into two columns, great. If you just want to put a little mark on your papers, factors that we control as teachers, factors that we don't control. Just 1 minute to do that, please. Just 10 more seconds on that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic to hear some of your ideas. Has anyone got anything that they'd like? So if we start with factors that we control, some of the key things that you've discussed that have come up through your discussions. Any volunteers, everybody? Yes, lady at the back.
Teacher enthusiasm.
Teacher enthusiasm, of course, that's a massive one, really, really important. Factor that we control or factor that is out of our control? We control, okay. Who else has got some ideas, something they'd like to share? Yeah.
Praise.
Praising students, massively, massively important. Students feel valued, they feel empowered if you praise them effectively. Our control, out of our control, within our control. Challenging tasks. Making sure that tasks are appropriate to the needs of the students, that we're stretching them, we're challenging them, and of course we're supporting them where they need it. Within our control, out of our control.
Connecting their knowledge to their real life. Connectivity can be established by us.
Relevance and connecting learning to their real lives. Again, something that we control, right? Anything else? Anybody got any that are out of our control? Student happiness in lessons.
Learning through playing.
Learning through play. Again, something that we set up, something that we manage and control. Anything else?
Their own feelings or mood at that moment.
Absolutely. Of course, students come into our room, with a particular mood. They maybe have things going on at home, circumstances at home that are making them unhappy. That is out of our control, but do you think we can manage that within our classroom? Can they come in and feel better? Yes. Potentially. Sometimes it's tricky, right? But it's something that we can do.
If you put everything under control, there is no creativity. Sometimes you give them free tasks to do and ask them to create solve of the problem because this is not solved. For example, at Sciagat theory, the rule of Sciagat can invent another relation between the angles and the lengths of each one or not?
Right, absolutely. So giving students freedom, not being too controlling, allowing them to be creative.
Don't make the students go through one channel.
Absolutely, yeah, completely agree with you. This is a quote that I think is really, really powerful. I've come to a frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in my classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it's my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and a child humanized or dehumanized. Now, I think that is a massive statement, but something that when you actually pull it apart, many aspects of it are very true and very relevant. And as we say, yes, of course, students do come into us with their mood, their circumstances, their home life and everything else. But within that room, within that atmosphere that we create, I think that we're pretty decisive and we're pretty powerful in that. So now trying to focus in a little bit on this idea learning through real life contexts. I'm being quite brash and quite kind of, I can't think what the word is, in saying that I believe that learning through real life contexts leads to increased student motivation and engagement, which leads to increased student happiness. I don't think we would disagree that when students are motivated and engaged, they feel happier, but we may disagree that learning through real life contexts is something that can influence on that. So what I'd like us to do is to, as I say, have a closer look at that, and then hopefully you'll leave thinking about learning through real life contexts as being something that has an impact on motivation and engagement. One of the main reasons that I've really kind of taken to this in my practice, and I know that other teachers have at First Point, is because our students, in the context that we're in an international context where students' lives are very transient, they move from school to school, a sense of belonging and a sense of identity is something that students can struggle with. A lot of students spend maybe a year or 2 years in a school. They don't only move to a new school, but they move to a new country. And as they get older, particularly in those teenage years, a sense of belonging is so important. In order for us to be able to achieve that sense of belonging, I think that during lessons, during our subject time, our curriculum needs to be relevant to their lives. I'll show you an example in a minute of where I think sometimes we actually do the opposite of that. Obviously, as the students approach their examination years, in the British curriculum, year 10, year 13, year 11, sorry, year 13, this is difficult. There are demands of the curriculum, there are things that we have to follow, there are things that we have to deliver and content that has to be covered. But I do think, particularly in year 7, 8 and 9, it's the perfect opportunity to teach students through real life contexts. It's more about a sense of teaching skills rather than actual content. It doesn't matter so much the actual content of what we're teaching students, but it's the skills that we're developing over time. And it's about the knowledge that they gain being relevant to their lives. The outcomes of learning in real life contexts are huge. If you give students a creative task, a creative outcome that they feel is relevant to their life, they will definitely engage and be motivated by it. A classic example of where I am, it just makes me laugh this. We're not going to look at this in real detail, but you can see here, this is taken from a scheme of work, French scheme of work for year 9. The title is La Rochelle. Put your hand up if you ever studied French at school, particularly if you lived in Britain. You've come across La Rochelle before. It's the classic town in France that everybody studies. And as you can see from the description of the unit, students will learn places in the town, how to say what their town has and doesn't have, the verb to go, the conjunction port, etc., etc. Now, when I look at that, the key thing that strikes me is the students do not live in a town. We live in a city. We live in Dubai. The places that are relevant in a town for a student studying in England are completely different from the places that the students relate to over here, right? So when you dig deeper into this, you start seeing the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You see the post office, you see this, and I think, is that what I'm going to teach these students? They don't even have access to these sorts of places. They want to learn the shopping centre, they want to learn the ski slope, they want to learn the pool, the beach, the mosque, and all of those other places. And that's where I think that something can so easily be transformed from something that's not very relevant to something that is very relevant. Again, just to highlight this, an example of a scheme of work that I did with year 9 last year, all about the 2021 vision, which we all know is massively important. And essentially the students had to kind of pull apart and understand the vision and all its different aspects. And then the outcome of that scheme of work was that they wrote a pledge to Sheikh Mohammed all about how they could contribute to the vision. And essentially what they could change in their lives, what they could adapt in order to contribute towards the vision. They were supposed to be learning how to use the conditional tense, which if you're not an MFL teacher, it means nothing to you, but essentially how to say, I could do this, I would do this, I want to do this, etc. So instead of saying, I could go to the shopping centre at the weekend, for example, they were saying things like, I could save water, I could recycle, I could eat more fruit, I could do things like this. Obviously, this is just an example of how we can take something and we can make it much more relevant for students. So what I'd like us to do now is to think about how we can apply this idea and this concept in different subjects. So what I've got for you here on your tables are a series of examples taken from all different subjects. Obviously, you are sat in mixed subject groups, so I'd love you to have a discussion about it, but obviously be thinking about your own subject. And I'd just like you to come up with a couple of different ideas of something that you're teaching over the next couple of weeks that you could easily transform into something that's relevant and real for students. You may already be doing so, and so we'd love you to share your examples with the people around you and then to feed them back in a few minutes. So just 3 or 4 minutes, what are you teaching in the next week or so that you could change, adapt slightly to make it more relevant and more real? Thank you. Yeah, there should be plenty. You take this one. Really important.
Where do you teach?
I'm at Jim's First Point School.
James, which one?
First Point, which is really close to here actually. Yeah, really close by.
The people who sell traders, how the people who sell this part, how can you teach petrol as example? How can you relate petrol engineers do? How can we define?
Just 30 seconds, guys, and then we'll take some feedback and see what ideas we've got. So I'm really interested, and I think everybody will be interested to hear each other's ideas. What we'll do is we'll try and get an example from each subject if we can. That might be tricky, but let's see how we go. So have we got any English teachers in here? Who'd like to share an idea that you might have with the rest of the group? Would you like to share your idea?
Well, yes. Actually, sorry. We had a concept that was given to us something about that paper.
On here?
Yes. The first one, if students are reading mystery, they have to recreate the scene of the crime and conduct a mystery investigation. We're thinking the way we could bring it to some real life concept is if we could have them maybe dig up a story from the newspaper and maybe write a newspaper report on that or something related to the test.
Right, absolutely. And do you think that you could have them take a story from the newspaper and then recreate that scene and actually act it out?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Are there any challenges that you think you might come across trying to do that?
We did something like that with our students where we created a crime scene and we had them, because we were dealing with detective fiction, they had to write their own detective fiction stories. And looking at the crime scene, we did come up with ideas. But I think the only challenge they faced was with vocabulary that was suitable to the crime.
Right, okay. So how could we overcome that then? If vocabularies are something that's difficult, and over here especially we have such a large proportion of students who English isn't their first language, so how do we overcome that sort of challenge, particularly in English, where they need vocabulary? So using images. So explain to us what you mean. How would you do that?
So whatever key vocabulary that you would have a picture beside it with the word in English. I would also sit the EAL learner beside a good speaker of English so that they can model it and have the opportunity to have a little whiteboard, because EAL learners don't like to make mistakes. So if they can have something that they can draft and then write it on neatly after it's been checked out inside them, that's just strategy that we'd use for EAL learners.
And also the whole idea of creating the crime scene is going to stimulate so many ideas, isn't it, in the students' minds. And then, as you say, if it's mixed ability and you've got students who do speak English, they can then share that vocabulary. I think that's a really great idea. Guys, come in. 1 minute of what's it called? Wellbeing minute.
Hi, my name is Zaina. This is my partner, Quinn. We are your wellness speakers, so it's just a minute, like take a break and we ask some questions. So would you kindly stand up? Okay.
Alright, so let's start with some simple neck movements. Just left, back to the right, and then back and forward. Alright, then put one of your arms forward, then put your other arm across it, and then put one back. Stretch. And then try it with the other. Move your arm like this across, and then let's just continue. then let's try balancing. Try and balance on one leg. If you need, use the table for support.
Try to fly.
And the other leg. And then finally, try to touch your toes. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so a great idea for English there. Let's have a think about maths. Have we got any maths teachers in here? No maths teachers?
No, we have. What idea you have given? We had a maths cafe.
Uh-huh.
So when the children bring this stuff, let's say biscuits and whatever, and then they set up a stall, they actually sell it. First they price it and they sell it. Then after that they take inventory of how much was sold, what exactly was sold, how many types of biscuits, what are the types of biscuits that were sold, maybe take percentages, make a pie chart.
Lovely. And so what was the kind of scheme of learning that was within? What was the context?
Depends on what the topic was. Let us say it was for the younger children because we did it across all the school grades. So addition, subtraction was also used, percentages were used, pie charts were used. So it was learning across the school.
And did you find that it increased student engagement and motivation and ultimately the outcomes?
Oh, yes, they were thrilled.
Fantastic. I mean, I think maths is a subject that can be quite difficult because it's quite matter of fact, and sometimes putting it into a broader context.
You know, with the biscuits and all the actual numbers, so they found it much easier.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Can everybody hear everything that everyone's saying?
Can I share
Yeah.
that, please?
Yes. Come.
You have whiteboard?
Here. Oh, I don't have a pen though. Yes. Here we go.
Small idea, but it's very useful for the students. My English is not, but the English is.
Your English is great.
Sometimes we give the kids the theory that this length is half of this length, if this one is of this one, and this one is of this one. Try to use it. How can the student discover this 25 years of? You write so much and this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you make accurate diagram of this, then the students measure this distance and this distance by himself. Then we have the end, the students will discover that this length is half of this length, if this one, if this one, if this one, if this one. This inquiry is very important for the student to discover the theory without to say the theory illustrates. This idea is something.
Yes, so it's the idea of not feeding the information to them, but letting them find it out.
You will be loose. You will not give them the theory. Don't tell them anything about the theory at the beginning of the process. Give them the things like this, give them the things. For example, in mathematics, you have a circle like this example, and you have the very middle. You understand? Give them some tubes, and let them measure all of this distance by meter, and this distance by ruler, and let them define, for example, this distance by this distance to use another relation.
Lovely. So finding more kind of physical and real ways of doing things, right? What about history? Any history teachers? What about, did you discuss an idea that you might be able to apply?
Sorry, so I'm elementary or primary.
Right.
But I was saying we just started inquiring into ancient civilizations, and one of the things that we started with as a tune-in was looking at Dubai then and now, and it brought relevance to the subject of ancient civilizations, which a lot of times the children have no background knowledge of, but being here in Dubai and looking at what it was before and how it's developed and grown, it really kind of motivated them to now learn about ancient civilization.
Absolutely, and I think in history that's a really key one. Being able to draw comparisons is really important because, of course, and actually my husband's a history teacher, so we were talking about this, and he was saying that a lot of his curriculum is British history, because it's a British curriculum school that he works in, and over time he's really tried to start giving students the opportunity to draw comparisons. And it's something that's hard to plan, and it's hard to kind of scaffold it so that you still know what the outcomes are going to be. But if you can do it, it can be really effective. That's a really good idea, thank you. What about social studies? Is anyone teaching social studies, newly introduced this year? No social studies? Geography? Yes, tell us, what was your idea that you discussed?
So we actually try to link whatever happens in Dubai with the Olympics. So if I'm talking about weather disasters, it's a part of the topic. So we start, when we are doing it in other subjects, when we do in UAE, we start what weather disasters happen in UAE, which is very rare, but even then we can have the sandstorm or we can have the one-off rains. What steps would you take to control it, or what are the relief measures you might require? And then we try to link it with the developing country where this one is much more critical. So we try to link Dubai wherever possible so that they make it relevant. Because they don't know what happens and what threats are, they're not very aware of what happens. So we try to look into a local disaster and then try to apply it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And also, if you can, if something does happen elsewhere in the world that you can then study, that's a great way in geography as well, isn't it? Actually, I always think, again, when I'm thinking about typical examples from when I was at school, when you studied coordinates, ordnance survey maps, where's the church, where's the school, where's this, that and the other. And I suppose a way that we can bring that to reality and kind of get the students involved is just around the school, coordinates around the school on a school map. They have to go and find particular things. You know, it's not necessarily the symbol for the church and the symbol that for the school, for example, but kind of making it a bit more real than that. Have we got any Arabic teachers with us? Yeah, tell us, what was your idea that you discussed?
Like for food, we can take them outside of the school and then ask them to compare between their own foods and their traditional food of UAE, and then we'll show them how to ask for how to talk in Arabic outside in restaurants or in any hotel when they are going there. We'll show some different items of food, and then they can talk about that thing. And also they can prepare some questions from outside to take, and then they can come to distribute in the school and to tell them what they saw outside, and they can report it. Or sometimes of library, we can take them to Republic Library, ask them to read some stories and to write the summary of that, and then after that also they can explain to the students in the same classes when they are coming to the
Lovely. I've heard of some great examples actually of experiential learning, isn't it, in Arabic, where they take students, particularly Arabic B students who find learning Arabic really hard, taking them to the fire station or the police station, or as you say, to a restaurant. Really nice, real ideas. Yes?
You can take the same topic as the same school, like for example, and you spread it to the mathematics section, to the science section, to the history section, to the social studies section, all to the art section, to make one topic.
Yeah, I love the idea.
to link with other subjects.
Exactly. Food. Go to science.
With the real life also.
Go to science to study the health, the relation between balanced diet and health. Yeah? And let them go outside to see the restaurant, go to mathematics to calculate the number of calories. Go to art to draw the suitable food for the students and to make it compare by pictures and something. Go to computer room to design, for example.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. And I think over time, a lot of schools are really trying to develop the cross-curricular idea. And I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the main challenge with that seems to be having the time for teachers to sit down together. Actually, at First Point, we've just introduced a completely new curriculum for years 5 to 8, which is a cross-curricular curriculum. So their history, their arts, their geography, all of those subjects are integrated, and they follow a particular question. Yeah, everything.
Into sports, everything in life.
Yeah.
Into the environment and cultivation and what.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you want to share?
Yeah, I think if you cross-curricular, if you take a topic and if you look at the skills which are meant to be as well taught, because this is all content, so you look at the skills, if you do a horizontal planning instead of vertical planning, you realize that if you develop inquiry skills in math, you will develop them in science, in a method at sort of same time.
Yeah.
Improving your style, you can do that in history, in English, and using the same sort of language in the classroom to enhance the learning skills. But in primary, if you take the topic, they work on topic. It's very, very easy to cross-curricular.
Yeah, to make it cross-curricular.
And then it makes it relevant because what they do in math, we've done that in English, or we've done that in humanities, or we've done that in numeracy, or embrace and then make the link themselves. It's all about making connection.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Have we got any ideas from any of the arts? Art or drama or music? Any teachers? No? Any ideas from anybody? What about science? Science teachers? Any other science teachers? Great, go on, give us one of your ideas that we were discussing.
You can make a music about food as a topic. You can make a music about food. You can give the teacher of English to write a story about food. You know how much I like food.
Okay, guys, does anyone else? Yeah, come on.
Water cycle can be taught by making them do a small based task on cloud seeding in Dubai.
Okay, fantastic. So the actual process of cloud seeding that actually happens here.
They will learn the operation implementation and see that the leaders will explain the water cycle.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you so much for all your fantastic ideas. I think, you know, we know that, I mean, we're in KHDA today, we're here, and we know that massively, massively important is that the link with Dubai, the link with the UAE, particularly with the 2021 vision. But yes, while that is really important, and all of us are doing a lot in school to make sure that we are linking things to that, I think if we can think about it as being genuinely beneficial for the students, and how we actually don't just say, right, let's measure the Burj Khalifa, because that's like the most obvious thing to do. You know, how do we actually make it so that the use of the context, the use of the vision, the use of the UAE links are actually relevant and appropriate to students? I think that's really important.
I think us the students, they're very creative and they can find links when you're short of ideas, like, well, what can we do? We've got this, or how can we link it to? They will come up with so many ideas that you haven't thought of, or they will come up with an idea and you will sort of play with that idea. And collaborative skills on that is very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let them come up with an idea.
Let them develop the ideas and decide. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, everybody.